Men, do you ever feel like you just can't get ahead? Like you're misunderstood? Like you have no one to talk to that truly hears you?
And women, are you often frustrated, hurt, and saddened in your relationships with the men in your life?
What if there were a community of like-minded men going through the same challenges that would support, hear, and understand what you're going through?
Working together in unison to create understanding, intimacy, and strong connections. That's the Way of the Illuminated Warrior.
Way of the Illuminated Warrior Talk Show is a forum of candid conversations for men and women about men. Being a man today is not always easy. Until now.
Hey, hello viewers and listeners. Thanks for joining us for another episode of the Way of the Illuminated Warrior Talk Show. I am your host, Waska, and we have a very heated and divisive topic to discuss today, so please stay with us. So for any of the newcomers, this podcast started with the intention as a forum for candid conversations for men and women about men. Those of you who know me or that don't, I do a lot of work with men, so it's important to me to get the perspective of women as well. So it's not just guys talking to guys about guys, and we have that balancing opinion here. So we're going to get to my guest in a moment, who is going to balance out that opinion. All right. So in the past year or so plus, this show has taken various twists and turns, and today's not going to be any different. So today, my returning guest is Lora Cheadle. Welcome, Lora.
Thank you. So excited to be here today.
Yeah, excellent. And for those of you who have not checked out the two previous conversations Lora and I had, we talked about betrayal and infidelity, really powerful shows. So go back and check them out. This is work that Lora is very committed to and works deeply with her clients and community. And I think it's for anybody, it would be really beneficial to check out those episodes. So offering that up. So today, if you could see behind me, this was a recent demonstration in Asheville where I live. And again, I just want to give the opportunity for Lora to speak as a woman, as a mother, as a wife, as a woman, as a human being, the recent turning around of almost a centuries long ruling, that Roe versus Wade. I mean, I think that's probably one of the few cases that probably everybody knows. Okay, so it's declaring that the constitutional rights for abortion for over half a century no longer exists. Okay, so this decision means that abortion rights are being rolled back in, I think, already nearly half the states, with more to follow. So I want to ask you, we'll start off, Lora, like hearing this, I mean, I think we kind of saw that it was coming. Like, how do you feel about this? How did this affect you? What does it mean for you? And we'll just jump right in and start right there.
Okay. There's so much around that. So I'm going to jump in, and a lot of this you don't even know.
I don't know anything. That's why I want a woman's perspective, because I can only speak to how I feel, which is irrelevant.
Yeah, exactly. I actually did my thesis. I'm a former attorney, and my undergraduate, I had to do a thesis as part of an honors program that I was in. And what I did is I compared the Dred Scott decision to the Roe versus Wade decision. And for listeners who don't know, the Dred Scott decision was around slavery and whether a Black person was actually a person or not, whether they were property or a person. And I compared that to the Roe versus Wade decision at the time. So for me, what I find most important about the Roe versus Wade case is not that it's men or women, that it's bodily autonomy. In the Dred Scott decision, it doesn't matter to me if it is a Black person, a brown person, a white person, a purple person, or a green person. It is, do you have autonomy as a human to be a human? And eventually we got back around to, yes, all humans are humans. And yes, I realize that we're still struggling with that because there's much racial injustice. But the Roe versus Wade in particular, it's almost like a baby, a fetus, blah, 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 that's almost like a red herring. What really matters is, do I have the autonomy to do with my body what I want? And then the argument comes in, no, you don't, because this is a baby. This is life, or this is potential life. And yes, I want to be very clear, an abortion does take some sort of a life. Now, you can go down a whole rabbit hole. What is life? A plant is life. An animal is life. Person in a vegetative state is life. So let's get off the life question and get to what's really going on. And what's really going on is, can you compel me to use my body as a host for another life? And the Dobbs decision said yes. The Dobbs decision says yes, the state has a compelling interest in vulnerable and innocent life, and that vulnerable and innocent life must be protected, and that you as a human can be compelled to use your body to sustain somebody else's body. So if you extrapolate, what did they just say? That means if my 5-year-old who is innocent and vulnerable, and I don't really have a 5-year-old, I'm just saying that, or if your innocent and vulnerable 90-year-old mother, or if our innocent and vulnerable sister or whatever needs a kidney, a liver, bone marrow, blood, anything like that, because of the state's interest in sustaining innocent and vulnerable life, any body then, any physical body can be used as a host to sustain that life. And that's what's so disturbing.
Well, the whole thing is very disturbing. And again, as a man, I try to think of an example, which there really is none, that would be converse to what women are up against. Okay. And I'm not telling anybody your opinion's right or wrong. I mean, obviously I have my own opinion. We all have our own opinions. To me, the most detrimental thing is, we're human beings. Like my father used to laugh because I always used to say, why can't we just all get along? And I get it. We all have different upbringings and belief systems and all. But what we're seeing and feeling about this, and we're all justified in our feelings, is it's the rollback of a half a century. It just feels like we're living in such archaic times that we're not even having empathy for something being taken away, which, okay, I'm going to express my opinion. It should be a God-given right, and I probably shouldn't have said God, but it opens up a whole nother can of worms. But as a man, closest example I could come, like was talking to somebody like, okay, every man has to have a vasectomy. You don't get a choice. You have a vasectomy, and then if you want to have kids, maybe we'll decide if you can have kids or not. And it's a bad analogy because there is no analogy.
No, there isn't.
There is
because
no
we are the incubators. Like we have the incubation, which truly makes us a host. A baby is a host of our body. And who gets to decide who we allow our body to be a host for? And the court just said the court said women, but let's take that ruling further. It's humans. Yeah. I can compel, and that's why I think what I think men need to be aware of too. It's just because your body doesn't have a uterus in it, what can your body be compelled to do? It's it's an egregious overstep in state interests into the person's physical being.
Absolutely. I totally hear you on that. So you answered with the Lora Cheadle lawyer answer. How did you feel when you heard this and you watched it, you saw it? Like what emotions were going through for you?
Oh, so many. First of all, fear. Fear that this is truly just the first step. I mean, it doesn't impact me right now, but it doesn't matter that it doesn't impact me. It impacts other women. It impacts men too. It's just that when you see that first domino fall and you say, what kind of a world is this, where we just had a Supreme Court say, you do not have the right to your own body, that we government can tell you what to do for your body to protect or preserve somebody else's potential life. Yeah. It's terrifying.
It's totally scary, and that's why, again, for me, this is really important, especially for the guys who are listening and the guys that I work with. We're having a telecircle tonight, and this is something that we're going to talk about because it's not something we could relate to, and I don't know
No.
how many guys maybe are thinking about it or not thinking about it because it's not a topic that we necessarily even care about. And I'm not speaking for anybody else, but it's very important because it's a human rights issue, really more than anything else, the way I look at it. And
Right.
it's important. So there's this photo behind me. As I said, it was in Asheville the other night, and just listening to these young women, you could see them. They are crying, they're terrified, they're emotional. And I spoke to a few of them, and they're petrified. So a young woman, like I raise sons, so I was thinking about that. Like if I had daughters now, I would be terrified for them because the decision has been taken away. And there's many different reasons why women would want to or need to have an abortion. Okay, we know that, right? It's not just, well, I don't want the baby. I mean, there's health reasons. There, God forbid, if you're abused and raped. I mean, there's a lot of different reasons why.
Right. Right. And that's what's so scary about it, to presume, to put judgment around it. There shouldn't be judgment around it. Laws should be neutral. A good law is neutrally applied to all people in similar circumstances. And people sometimes go to like stealing. Stealing is wrong. Murder is wrong. We have all of these rules. And then we have some exceptions around them. And the exceptions need to be based on something that is not moral based, because we can't agree on that morality. So, for example, when you talk about stealing, somebody always says, but what if they were stealing a loaf of bread to feed their starving child? It's a morality thing. We don't have the starving child exception codified in United States law because that's a morality thing. It's a slippery slope. Then what else do we need? What else is an exception? Because I was hungry, because my blood sugar dropped and I was hangry, because we can't judge it morally. And even things like murder, we have some exceptions for murder in terms of like self-defense. But that's not a moral question.
Yeah.
That's a more human thing. And that's what's so disturbing about this decision also, is it puts judgment. She shouldn't have done that. You can't just have sex and then not deal with the consequences. That's a moral judgment. Every human makes mistakes. Sometimes we do face the consequences, sometimes we don't. And having an abortion is also a consequence. Nobody wants one. Nobody says, I'm going to go have an abortion for fun because it's awesome. That's a consequence too. And it's just the amount of hypocrisy in it. People will say, abortions mess you up so much, it's awful. You'll never be the same after one. Whether that's true or not, could that be your consequence? Why does your consequence have to be what somebody else has prescribed as your appropriate consequence, which is having a baby? It's hard to have a baby. It's hard to give a baby up for adoption, and it's hard to have an abortion. Why are we judging?
Yeah, as a man, I can't even imagine how that would affect you psychologically, physically, spiritually. So, as you say, that in itself is a major emotional trauma that you go through, and I'm sure no woman takes that lightly.
No.
Having a human being grow within inside your body and giving it up for whatever reason. I mean, that's
hard.
Nobody's taking that lightly. There's no way. That's just like, okay, flippantly. So it's a pretty heavy duty issue. And I think it's really, listening to you, it's really, even from the legal standpoint, it's systemic. It's, I don't know, maybe I'm an idealist. I don't know. I just think back about human rights, like in 2022, that we're still deciding, what somebody else could do. I mean, freedom of speech is why don't we take away freedom of speech then? You have groups out there who are spewing hate and death, and because they don't like certain groups. That's okay, right? I mean, I'm just boggled by, where we are sometimes. So this issue is a huge hot topic that we're not going to agree on.
No. And it's just fascinating, coming out of the pandemic. Now it's more endemic, but the whole mask debate. You can't tell me to wear a mask.
Great point.
You can tell me to bear a child, and then if you don't wear a mask and you get sick, is that your consequence? Do I get to judge you for that? Why do we as humans feel compelled to judge somebody based on their decision?
It's not the same as ours. That's why, we're narcissists. If you don't feel the way I do, if you don't believe the way I do, then you're wrong and I'm right.
Yeah.
That's a really great analogy. It's kind of like the same thing. It's like, being forced to have the vaccine, if your belief system, if your body, or for whatever your reason, that you don't feel like it's something that you want to do, but you have people pointing fingers. Well, you're the problem, you're the issue, and you better get it done because I said so, and he said so, and she said so. It comes back to human rights. And I get it. We all, Dalai Lama says, the Buddhist philosophy, we all want to avoid suffering and be happy. But the way we go about these things, it's not helping the situation, and I don't know what the answer is. I mean, if it were up to me, everybody could do whatever the hell they want. Well, not really, but
Right. But no, and like along that body thing too, we talk about, fat shaming people and health. If the state, as this decision says, the state has a compelling interest in life, that does mean then the state could mandate no sugar. That does mean the state could mandate exercise. That means the state could mandate how you exercise, what you do, because now we have given the state a compelling interest in our bodies. And where does it end? I mean, people are worried about governmental overreach.
Yeah.
Isn't this the first step in the absolute worst kind of overreach? Because it has to do with your body. It doesn't even have to do with your property, your gun, your, any of your things. It has to do with your body. And that's pretty scary.
Yeah, absolutely. And whether it's legal, moral, or whatever, a young woman coming of age now has less rights than her mother, than her grandmother. I mean, where are we going with this?
Yeah.
So in your circle, whether it's your lady friends or guy friends or family or whatever, what's the conversation looking like?
It's mixed. It's mixed. And there's a lot of places where I choose not to have the conversation because most people just want to talk about how they're right. And most people really don't want to learn and think and ponder another way. So honestly, I've had a few conversations, but not many.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, whatever the topic is, it's always easier to talk to somebody about what we agree upon. No doubt about that. But it also makes this kind of stalemate where we don't move forward and we're just battling each other. And, I get so really frustrated by the whole political conversation. The Republicans, the Democrats, they're all the same as far as I'm concerned. They have their own agendas, and this side's weak and this side's aggressive, and then it's just I remember being a little boy. Well, not that little, young, but old enough to just start learning about politics. And then you have the two different sides, which, they even say on this side of the aisle, why are there two different sides? And I get it. We need options. I understand that. And I understood that then. But it's so aggressive. It's so like pointing the finger of what he did. There hasn't been a she yet. And that's the thing I say to the guys. And the guys know I support men's work. I support men. What would it look like if tomorrow we woke up and women were running the country? Okay. Right. And that's part of what I really feel like we need to work on, because without the balance, it's never going to work. So women are standing up rightfully. A lot of women that I see have a bit of that yang masculine energy, which I personally don't feel like it's we're not walking side by side. One's still in front or ahead behind the other, and it needs to be some kind of equanimity where we are working together to find solutions to. We don't have to agree with each other, but we do need to at least honor what the other is saying and not be so aggressive and not be putting anybody else down, because it just doesn't work.
Yeah. And I love what you said about honoring, because I think that's what is so problematic right now. Neither side will concede any point on anything. And I think it's important to say, yeah, an abortion will take a life, but I guess it depends on how you define life. And I think it's disingenuous, the people who are saying a fetus is a woman's body part. It's not really a body part. But let's look at our culture and our world, and lives get taken all the time. And I'm not saying that it's good or it's bad, but let's acknowledge that does happen. And we don't have like our Good Samaritan laws. We're not required to act. If we were all required to do things to save every single life, our world would look very different.
Yeah.
And we have laws right now where we can choose to be a donor, an organ donor, or we can choose not to be an organ donor. We can choose, we can choose to give blood, or we can choose not to give blood. And we can even choose what to do with our body after death. And if I am going to not donate my organs, I might be taking a life, because I might have somebody in my state who needs my kidney or my liver or my lung or even my heart. That's taking a life.
Yeah.
And it's like, we just have to get really real about that. We have capital punishment. We do take lives.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think about choice. I think the only real choice that we have is how we show up every day, and how we treat other people, and how we interact, and how we accept or don't accept. And again, maybe it's an idealistic way of thinking and looking at things, but I just know from being in everything from interpersonal conflicts or on a larger scale, if we could just, it's the golden rule. Really, it's kind of the golden rule, but that we talk about, on a large scale, but we don't necessarily do for each other, and if we could just, it's there's so much ego involved, I believe, that, well, no, I'm right, you're wrong, and this is the way it's going to be. And especially when you have the power, well, too bad, this is the way it's going to be. And that's, that is the patriarchy. That's the way it's been. And I think it's really important to acknowledge that, as I was saying, if we woke up tomorrow and women were running the country, running the world, well, just like a lot of situations, okay, maybe they're angry, maybe they're pissed off at the way that it's been done from the patriarchy for a very long time. And then, dudes, guess what you get, because you weren't cool. And then all of a sudden, we're going to be aggressive. That's not going to work, because we're going to get, we're going to get put down. And then, it just doesn't work. It's not working. I don't know why even the patriarchy doesn't see that. It is not working. Mm-hmm. It really isn't. If we're going backwards after decades, centuries, so, what would you say to, and it may fall on deaf ears, but let's say this group, this person that you're talking to is not allowed to respond. What would you want to say to those who just have this is the way it is, and too bad if you don't like it, because I'm right and you're wrong?
Yeah.
They're not going to change their mind, of course, but just, just to try to elicit that empathy and have them understand, what's going on here.
Yeah. I mean, for me, from where I sit, the biggest thing, the only thing that I feel like I could do or say really is, I love you. I respect you. And I honor those decisions. Because I'm not even going to ask for it in return, Because if I ask for it in return, I know it's not going to be given to me. And all I can do is offer what I want. I can show up as the person that I want them to be. And if you want to do that in your life, do it. And I will support you and I won't judge you for that.
Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful. Well, it reminds me of the Hawaiian, the Ho'oponopono prayer, I don't know if you're familiar with that. It's like, I'm sorry, please forgive me. I love you. And, thank you, which is like, how do you battle that? It's like, we're not doing that as on the macro. But that's, there's got to be some healing. There's got to be some forgiveness. There's got to be some understanding for us really to move forward, walking side by side. And again, that it's so important really that the sacred feminine and divine masculine to be on the same page. And unfortunately, it's like, I don't see a lot of progress with that. And, again, doing the men's work, I mean, there's been a lot of, in the micro, in our groups and stuff, there's a lot of awareness and there's support for both sides of the aisle, as it were. It needs to be spread out there, and a lot of times guys don't want to stand up, even if they agree with, and whatever topic it is, agree with what a woman is going through. If they're bros, if they're guys, if their tribe is like, they don't want to stand up. And I'm telling you guys, if you really want to have a connection with your partner, if you really want to be there for your friends who probably feel the same way you do, a lot of them, but they're not going to stand up either, then step outside. The peer pressure was one thing when we were little dudes, but we're not little dudes anymore. We're hopefully men who need to stand the way it used to be for our women. Do anybody remember this? We'd stand for the women, the children, and the elders. Okay. Right. Interpret that the way you want, but that's not happening now as the way I see it.
Right. So. And I just don't understand. I mean, honestly, I cannot understand why any man who has sex would not want access to an abortion. Because I know not every single time a man has sex is he ready for fatherhood. I know that. So I fail to understand that. I do understand thinking that this is a human life. I do understand thinking that it's icky. I do understand thinking that it's not ideal. But unless you want a child every single time you have sex, and no, I'm sorry, but nobody does, then why would you be opposed to this?
Well, that's always been the easy thing for men. If there's, I'll call it an oopsie, a mistake, whatever, we're involved, obviously, because it takes two, but we're not the ones that our bodies are going to change, that something's going to grow in, that we have to go through this traumatic process physically and mentally, whatever the decision is, so there's a lot of responsibility that needs to be had there as well, which, gets back also to, I know the way my dad was. It's just, it needs to be taught, like, to all of the young men. It really does. So it starts off with respect. And I think when the respect is there, the mutual respect is there, that's a conversation that's had with your partner. And so how's that affecting young people today that are looking to have sex? And, even if they're using protection and something happens, things happen, then what? So how is that affecting relationships now?
Right. Yeah, because I can't imagine how it would be helpful, because it makes you on the opposite side sometimes as your partner, because I'm not going to take the risk for both of us.
Yeah. I don't know why my brain's going here. It's a little bit off topic.
That's okay.
But this is bizarre, really bizarre. So they say, I think by 2050, the population of Japanese people will be cut in half. And do you know why? This is how crazy. I mean, I saw this, I don't know if it's on Netflix or whatever. So Japanese men are so disenchanted with the relationships with women, and I'm talking about flesh and blood, real women, that they are literally having relationships with this digital, I don't know, avatar, whatever. This is like a real deal thing. And when I was watching this, I'm like, is It's huge in Japan that it's actually going to affect the population. And they had interviews with different people. This young man was talking to his mom. Yeah, I'm going out with, I don't remember the name of the app. I think they're all called the same thing, maybe Yuki or something. Well, I'm going out with Yuki tonight. We'll say it's Yuki. And he's talking like it's a real person. And they kind of go into that scenario until you realize, and they explain, it's like this AI digital woman. Like, and that's kind of sad. This is a population now that feels more comfortable having relationships, which I guess you could call it a relationship. I don't know, with a digital partner. I mean, wow.
Right.
You know? I mean, I guess we don't have to worry about this issue in that case, but we also don't have to worry about a population ever going any further either. We'll all be extinct in X amount of time, which maybe that's the answer. I don't know.
Right. But it's through relationships that we learn. It's through relationships that we grow, that our wounds are exposed, that we heal, that we become better people. So yeah, that's a sad state of affairs. And absolutely. I don't think all women forever will cease having sex just because of, this, but it's definitely punitive towards women. And there's always been that view that is wrong anyway, that men want more sex and blah, 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 blah. Women want sex too, but this is punishing women for engaging in sex, and it's not punishing men for it.
Yeah. So before we wrap up, so what would you say to any guys listening? How do we get educated? How do we support? How do we empathize with what's going on here?
Yeah, I think it's time for more than just empathy and more than just understanding. I really feel like this is a crucial tipping point in the trajectory of the United States, actually. And I think it's really time to, not that I'm advocating like being a single issue voter or anything like that, but I really think it is time to get really clear with whether it's your representatives, whether it's your church, whether it's people that you're around, that this is important. And I do need to take action around this because the impact is substantial and the potential to have far-reaching detrimental consequences in other areas is huge.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that because it's very easy to say, well, just, I mean, you told me, you answered my question. It's that like empathy is not enough. We need to do something about it. And I appreciate that. And I do agree that it's important. It's a human right that's being taken away. So I do support that. And I will talk to my brothers about that. I will share that in our circle tonight. And as always, I appreciate your stepping up and sharing your feminine perspective because it's important. It's very important.
It is. So it is. Yeah. Thank you for having me. I wish I could be there tonight in person.
Well, it's a men's group, so you could be a fly on the wall, perhaps, but you couldn't be there in person.
I wish I could hear that. Yeah.
Well, thank you for all the work that you're doing, Laura. As usual, in the show notes, we'll put your information so people can connect with you and keep doing the good work that you're doing. And hopefully, the next time we chat, we're going to have some really positive change that's occurred that we could share and an uplifting, beautiful, new decision. I'm putting that out there.
I'm putting that out there right there with you. Thank you for having me.
All right, beautiful. Well, thanks for joining us, and make sure that you follow, like, subscribe. I feel like I'm so old when I say that because I never did any of that stuff. But anyway, like, subscribe, follow, and we'll see you next time. Continue to illuminate your paths with loving kindness.
Visit IlluminatedWarrior.com if you'd like to go deeper and find out more about what's available within the Illuminated Warrior Men's Transformational Community. Tune in next time for more candid conversations for men and women about men on the Way of the Illuminated Warrior Talk Show. Until next time, illuminate your path with loving kindness.